If you've got some money saved up and you're thinking of buying a property this year, listen up, because just because a place looks cheap on paper or sounds like prime real estate, it doesn't mean it's a smart move. In fact, some of the worst performing areas in 2025 are the ones people think are safe bets, and if you get it wrong, it can set you back years. I've sourced hundreds of properties across the UK for investors, and I can tell you now, the numbers don't lie. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 4 worst property areas that will screw you up in 2025, backed by actual data and not opinions. So let's get into it. Here's the reality. When people ask me, VJ, where should I buy? They're really asking what's going to make me money without making a mistake. But you know what's more important than finding a good area? Avoiding a bad one. Because you can recover from a bad deal, a bad property, but you can't recover from a bad area simply because you don't have control over the area. You can turn the house around, you can refurb it, add value, but you can't do that with an area. So that's why recovering from a bad area, that's 10 times harder. We've had investors come to us after buying in places that looked good online, only to realize 2 years later nothing grew, the rents didn't really stack up, and now they're stuck. They'll say things like, I wish I knew this before I bought. Well, after you watch this video, you will. Let's start with one of the most obvious traps. Coastal areas like Cornwall, Dorset and the Isle of Wight. Now on the surface, they look great, right? They're picture perfect postcards, but behind the scenes they've been dropping hard. You walk through towns like St. Ives and it's a row of pretty pastor houses, you know, the ones you see on Instagram, Airbnb signs everywhere, and it still feels like a holiday hotspot. It looks like a holiday hotspot, but underneath that the cracks are starting to show. According to Home Track's 2025 report, which I'll pull up on the screen, some parts of Cornwall have seen price drops of up to 22% in the last 12 months. That's not a dip, that's a cliff. And you know why? It's because second home demand has cooled down. Airbnb saturation has killed long-term rent returns, because let's be honest, every man and his dog is now doing Airbnb, and also local councils are tightening holiday let rules. What I also think is that during 2020 and 2021, these places were on fire, right? And it's because you weren't allowed to fly anywhere else. So it's almost like we had no other option to go into these places. Even me, I like going abroad, but during those years, I was going up Bristol, I was going Cornwall, I was going Bournemouth, you know, all these places where you just wouldn't go anyway. But what's happened now is, now that the borders are all open and the whole world is back to normal, the staycation hype during 2020 is just not there anymore. And these are the kind of areas that sounds good in theory, but when you start putting the numbers on the spreadsheet, it just doesn't make sense anymore. And this isn't just a 2024 thing. This trend has been building up for a few years. It's just that now the data started to catch up. What this area teaches us is that just because somewhere's pretty, right, you can take a few photos on Instagram, it doesn't mean it's profitable right now. Now this next one will probably surprise you. It's the other end of the spectrum. Central London, areas like Kensington, Chelsea, Westminster and Mayfair. All of these places, they're premium, right? But unless you're sitting on millions, it's a financial trap. Because here's the thing right now, prime real estate, it doesn't mean it's profitable. According to Jeffries London, the average monthly sale prices in these prime boroughs have fallen by as much as 60% compared to peak 2024 levels, which is just crazy. I swear I'm not making this up. Mayfair alone has taken a 60% hit. Chelsea is down 47%, and then there's other areas between 21 to 44%. And to show you visually how bad that is, let's say you purchased a property in Mayfair for 3 mil, okay, because that's the kind of money you have to stump up to be buying in Mayfair, and that property could now be worth 1.2 million pounds based on the 60% drop. Obviously it's not a science, but that's what the data suggests. 1.2 million. So that means that's 1.8 million worth of value that has been wiped off, or could be wiped off if you purchased in Mayfair with a 60% reduction. Let's talk about Chelsea as well, another one. 47%. So let's say you purchase a property there for 2 mil, and that property could probably be worth 1.6 mil right now, right? Because of the 47% drop. That means you have essentially lost £940,000 just because you bought in these prime real estate areas. Not looking good. So really, these areas are big money, they're big risk, but because it's in these prime London areas, people just don't really question it, right? You just assume, don't you, that it'll all work out. And then rents haven't kept pace either. And this one surprised me because I've always thought, okay, maybe London isn't as hot as it used to be, or maybe it's going through a bad time. But I always thought, oh, rents, there has to be demand in rents. The rents always go up, right? And they do, to be fair. But right now, there's a report from Savills, again, I'll pull it up, that shows prime central London rents have remained flat, around 0.1% year-on-year growth, which to me, again, I still don't really believe it, because I'm like, I just assumed that London, the rents, you know, there's always demand. So you tell me, if you're in London right now, are you seeing the same thing as these reports, or are the reports a bit exaggerated? But if you just go by this data, right, and we have to stick to data in this video, you've got a place that's expensive to buy, it's slow to rent, and then you're stuck in a slump, right? What this area teaches us is that, you know, prime areas, they can almost mask a poor performance, and a big price tag, it kind of hides the risk, the bigger risk, even further. Now, before I get into this next one, let me be clear. I've got a soft spot for Manchester because I lived there. After I graduated as an accountant, I got my first job as an accountant in Manchester, right? And at the time, I decided to live in a place called Wilmslow while I was working in the city centre. And the reason why I chose Wilmslow was because it was cheap, right? I was only on £19,000 a year, and I thought if I could just budget wisely to where I live, and then maybe I can save up more and then potentially buy a house in the future. So it wasn't anything fancy. I just needed somewhere to get settled while I was figuring things out. But having said that, I used to commute to the city centre every day for work, which is where I worked in 19 Spring Gardens. And I remember seeing all these shiny new high rises going up, right? 100 plus unit blocks everywhere. There was cranes. You only need to look up and there was cranes everywhere. And to be fair, Manchester is still a bit like that. But at the time, that city was booming. Everyone was saying how the prices are going up. And at the time, any investment in the city centre, you couldn't go wrong. And I used to think that, oh, once I save up a bit of money, I'm gonna buy a property in city centre, right? Because that's where the place was to invest. And I would have made a lot of money. But if you ask me now, would I buy in Manchester city centre today? I'd actually say absolutely not. Now, don't get me wrong, Manchester overall is still one of the best cities to invest in right now. That's my opinion. But the city centre itself, that's where I probably wouldn't invest. Again, in the Home Track 2025 report, in Manchester city centre, listings for flats in Manchester are up, right, 14%, but house listings are only up 5%. There's just too much stock, really. So what's really happened is that developers, they've seen other developers make a shitload of money in Manchester a few years ago, and they're like, oh, we can do that, let's do the same. And as a result, developers have oversupplied the market with luxury nice apartments. They do look nice, to be fair, but they just don't deliver strong returns. Yields have dropped below 5%, and with flats, you know how it is. There's rising service charge, there's ground rent, there's high management fees as well. And in the end, what's happening now is most landlords, they're just making very little right now. We've spoken to investors recently. One of our investors who's decided to invest with us, right, in our deal sourcing business. And what they did was they bought off plan, which was a bad move anyway. And then they bought a flat again, which was a bad move in Manchester city centre. Now, they can't rent that property out for what they thought it was going to be because, you know, there's not as much demand and there's a lot of competition, and they can't sell it either for what they paid. So it becomes tricky. And then the last one on the list is a bit of a slow burner. Outer commuter towns like Slough, Luton and Basildon. Now, I get the logic. You're close enough to London, but without London prices. And to be fair, these areas historically have been seen as the more affordable gateway to London, the more like realistic thing to be aiming for. But here's what's happening right now. Post-pandemic, with more people working from home and the rising commuting costs, they're no longer as appealing. According to Rightmove's April 2025 index, so it's very recent, the demand for properties in those zones, it's down 24% year on year. Meanwhile, average time on market has increased by 38 days. People just don't want these 90 minutes commutes anymore. They rather live outside of London entirely or move north and work remotely, because there's so many now opportunities where you can just work remotely. So it's like, why do you want to pay London, you know, prices and rent where you can still work in London but maybe live in the Midlands where it's so much cheaper, right? So you're pocketing more money. And I've seen more and more people do that. We've seen more price reductions in these areas anywhere else in the southeast. Rental demand is softening, and even worse, we've seen properties there take months longer to sell compared to nearby regions. It's not that these places are awful forever, but what I'm saying is right now there are much better places to park your money. So if you zoom out, here's what this teaches us, right? And this is what I've kind of observed. That first thing, let's talk about coastal towns. Coastal towns don't ignore off-season income, right? And I see people really get excited. Oh, this is what could happen in June. This is what can happen in July. Yeah, but what about December, January, February? Because you're going to be having to pay for the whole year, right? Your mortgages for the whole year, your bills are for the whole year, your council taxes are for the whole year. So you need to focus on the whole season income, and do you still make profit? For prime London, what surprised me is that you've always thought if you buy in London, you'll always be fine. And to be fair, in the long term, I think you'll be fine. But you haven't got millions to waste, right? And fancy postcode doesn't mean it's going to be a good deal for you. And then city centre flats, whether it's in Manchester or Birmingham, before you purchase these kind of properties, don't just look around and, you know, get romantic over them because they look nice, they're closer to city centre, it's commutable to your workplace. Think about this. Is there an oversupply? Can you get the rent you want, and will you be able to get the property sold if you were to sell it, you know, in a few years' time for the price you paid for and more? Because right now, that's not what's happening in Manchester city centre anyways. And then these commuter towns, just remember and understand from this that past demand doesn't mean future growth. Always focus on the now. It's not about avoiding every area, obviously. It's just about understanding what to look for before you buy. And how I see it is that if you've got some money saved up right now, you're thinking of buying your first property or your next property, you don't get 10 tries of this, right? You only get 1 or 2 decent swings unless you've got a lot of money. And if you get the area wrong, everything else just becomes harder. So yeah, don't just chase postcards that used to work. Look at the data, look at the demand, look what's actually working in 2025, not what worked in 2015. If this video gave you clarity, the next step is understanding whether you should buy a flat or a house, because it's not just about price, it's what actually grows your money long term. So go and watch the video, flats versus houses, which one you should buy next, and I'll see you over there.